Hello and welcome. In this session, we are going to see to create and launch an instance which is called as Azure Database for PostgreSQL single server. So this is a managed instance which is being launched in Azure. These are some of the points which we need to understand. So this is general information about the single server. So you can manage many databases from single point the way you manage it on premises, wherein you can have a single host and you can deploy many databases on top of that. The same way it will be over here also. We will have single endpoint wherein there will be a server and many databases can be accessed, and that particular endpoint will be the parent resource for all the databases, and it is being used for providing a namespace for the databases, and all the resources, that means anything which is related to the database, they will be residing in a particular region. The way you manage your on premises, to a great extent some of the things are going to work, like the login, firewalls, users, roles, configuration, etc. Not everything, but some of the things. The major drawback for the single server is the version which it supports. As of now it is 9.6, 10 and 11, with 14 being launched last a month. So I believe this is not the correct version, or this may not be something fitting into your portfolio unless or until there is some kind of requirement, like we wanted to be in either of these three major versions. So it is 9.6, 10 and 11. So you need to make a decision making, like you wanted to be on all the three versions which are quite old, and you wanted to create a single instance where in many databases will be hosted. And you need to understand that many databases which are going to be hosted on the single server, they are going to consume the resources, so the resource sharing will be there. So just make sure that many databases on a single PostgreSQL single server, that should accommodate your requirement. Then how do I connect and authenticate to Azure database for Postgres? The way you communicate as of today, you give an endpoint, you give the protocol, and you give the IP or the host name or the port, let's say default port. You manage the firewalls. To a great extent, they will be looking same. In the demo, we are going to see this. How to manage your server? The easiest way is you can go through the portal, or if you are good in the command prompt, you have the CLI also. This is going to be very important. The admin user which is created during the setup, it is going to be Azure underscore PG underscore admin. It is not your usual Postgre super user who will be the owner of the databases. So it is not going to be that. So there will be a role which is predefined. So when you create an admin user, it will be the part of Azure underscore PG underscore admin, and this role is not having the super user permissions. So who is going to have the super user permission? The Postgres super user attribute is assigned to Azure underscore super user, which belongs to the managed instance. So you do not have the access of Azure underscore super user. What you will have is, when you create a new user during the launch, that time you can create it, and that will be part of Azure underscore PG underscore admin. And that's the way how the managed instances work. They will not give you the full access. And these are the default databases which you can see, and this is entirely different what you see on the on-premises. You see Postgre, a default database through which you can normally connect to your server, and that this is created. And the same way it will be here also. Azure underscore maintenance, this is something new in Postgres managed instance. So this database is used to separate the processes that provide the managed service from user action. Again, you do not have the access to this. And the third one in this series is Azure underscore sys. This is entirely related to performance tuning of your PostgreSQL query, the historical data, and something related to that. We will see in a separate demo like how it actually works. So just to understand, there are three default databases which are available when you create a managed instance in PostgreSQL using the single server. server parameters. So in on premises you have postgresql.conf, wherein you have, I believe, 606 or 666 parameters. The same way you have the parameters available over here in the portal, and there will be a lot will be enabled by default during the creation of your managed instance, and there are other which are available, and based upon your requirement you can make the changes. Some of them are dynamic and some of them are static, that requires the recycling of the service. In that case you have to take care of that. So to a great extent it looks similar but not same. And now we'll start the quick demo. So I'm in the Azure portal. I'm going to launch Azure database for PostgreSQL. I'll say create, and this is the first one on the left hand side, which we else it is best for broad range of traditional transaction workload, and this is enterprise ready, fully managed community PostgreSQL with up to 64 virtual cores and optional geospatial support. So we'll quickly create it, and just for this demo we'll say I have created a resource group earlier, so I'm going to use that, and I'll give the name it's managed PG13, and we will say this is our demo instance. The data source, do you want to create a blank server, or you want it to restore an existing server? So we don't want to do anything, it is just a blank server. So if you put it blank backup, then you have to give from where you are going to restore it. So location, I'll give closer to my home location, the base location. And let me see, okay, I'll go with this one. Okay, and the version, this is another challenge. So you have only three versions which are quite older, and the most of the migrations, they are happening in and around to Postgre 13 and 14 in already launched last month. So we should be looking something closer to 13. We are not going to go for powerful server. For this demo, we are going to take a very simple server with the least resources, just to control the amount which we are going to put it on this. So we'll say just okay. So it is two CPUs, 50 GB of memory, and that's the minimum which can be allocated. And I will say this is Postgre admin, and we will give some password. So nothing great so far. It is just we have selected the different components, and the versions which you need to understand. It is not like whatever versions you want it will be available. It is just you have 9.6 till 11 in this particular region, and then we will say additional settings. And additional settings, if you wanted to encrypt, you can go for that. If you wanted to the infrastructure double encryption enabled, if you wanted to do that, that can also be done. You wanted to put some kind of tagging, that can be done. Review and create. So I'm just going to create it, and the important part after this will be when you put the security rules, or the firewall rules, so that you can connect from your system or the environment. So that is something which you need to take care of. Otherwise you will not be able to access your PostgreSQL managed instance in a single server, and you have to control that. So let us see how it is going to come up. Once it is available, it is going to take a minute or so, and once it is available, we'll see how it is working. Let me go to the, we will refresh it, and it is going to take a few minutes. I believe it is going to take at least 1 minute. So just a recap of what we have done so far is we have deployed PostgreSQL uh, 11, which is the most latest version in single server, and we are going to establish the remote connectivity using pgadmin. And one of the important thing over here which is going to be is the version of the databases, the managed instance, and how you are going to manage uh, the connectivity. So all right, let us go back to some of the important points over here. Server parameter, to a great extent, it is going to be the same. It is like your PostgreSQL.conf, and pg underscore hba.conf. There is nothing like that, wherein you have to do the client authentication. Here you have security rules wherein you have to say my IP range is this, or this is my particular IP which wanted to connect to this instance. So you allow the incoming connection from there, so that you can do. Other than that, you have in your on-premises environment, you have Postgre template, template 0, template 1. But in case of managed instance, you have Postgre, which is the default database. And there are two more databases. One is related to Azure maintenance, and another is Azure underscore sys, which contains or controls the information regarding the, excuse me, related to the performance of Postgre database. And how do we manage the Postgre? Either you can use the portal or you can use the CLI, and the user management, or the by default when you create a on-premises Postgre instance, you have something called as admin user, which is Postgre, who is the super user. But here you will not be able to do something like that, because super user permissions are restricted and they will not be allowed. There is something called as Azure underscore super user that has been revoked, and nobody is allowed to use that. And there is something called as Azure underscore PG underscore admin, which is used for the administrative task. When you create a user, the master user in case of this instance, this role will be assigned to that. And the way we connect it on premises environment, the same way we are going to connect over here as well. So let us see how we are going to do it now. This should be up and running any moment. Where is it? Refresh. And once it is up and running, we will go ahead and we will create the server. That means we are going to create the connection. But before doing that, we have to ensure that proper incoming connections are allowed. Uh, I don't know how long it is going to take. Come up. Okay, I think it is up and running now. You can see this is the server name, this is the admin username, this is the PostgreSQL version instance, this is the configuration of the server which has been configured. And what we have to do is, this is activity log, like what has happened so far, what time this instance has been created. Access control, in case you wanted to go it through the IAM, you can do it. Tagging, we have not given any tagging. You can diagnose if there is any problem. We'll directly go to the connection security. In case you wanted to have the connections to your particular IP or a range of the IP address, you can mention that. In my case, I'm just going to give it to my application IP address, or the host name, which is dynamic in nature. So it is going to take that. So once it is done, you should be able to access your environment, because this is somewhat similar to your pg underscore hba.conf. And there is something called as connection underscore string. If you are trying to log in through PSQL, this is the host name you have to give, this is the port, your database, let's say I'm trying to use Postgre, and this is the username. So username comes up with the @ host name. So you have to ensure that you use these parameters while you are making the connections. So what I'm doing is, this is my host name, which I'm going to damage immediately after this demo. And username, this is not just the admin user which you have created. The username comes up with the host name as well. So just make sure that you understand that. Username is username which we have created, the admin user postgresadmin this is the host name which you have created during the deployment. And if everything is perfect, I'm feeding in the password. I hope this is correct. And if everything is fine, it is going to connect. So this is connected now. So if you go to databases region, you will see there is something called as Azure underscore maintenance. So permission denied for database Azure underscore maintenance. Who is going to connect? The admin user which we have created, and that is not the super user. The super user is not given to anyone. You have something called as Azure underscore sys. This contains the information related to the performance we will see in some other demo, and Postgre is like your normal Postgre database which is created. So this is all about how we create an instance and the details around that. So just a quick recap. So we created a PostgreSQL instance for Postgre single server. So it is just a single host name wherein you can deploy many databases according to your requirement. The versions are the quite older. It is 9.6 to 11, and you can have one database on this single server, or you can have many servers, I mean databases, according to your requirements. The resources will be shared according to your decision. Then how do I connect? The way you connect to the on-premises PostgreSQL, the similar way you have to do it over here. The only thing is you should have the proper user ID so that it can connect to the PostgreSQL instance. How to manage your server? So you have the super user which is being create not the super user, I'll say the admin user, which is part of Azure underscore PG underscore admin, which is not super user like your Postgre. The super user is Azure underscore super user who has been restricted so that nobody can access it. So you have three databases over here. You have Postgre, Azure underscore maintenance, and Azure underscore sys. Server parameters are the way you do it in your on-premises environment. It is same. So if you see the server parameters, come up some, okay, you can see these are the parameters which are available. I do not see the count how many of them are there. You can go for the replication according to your requirement. You can go for the replica or the logical replication. We will see in some demo, and it shows you the properties like what is the status, whether it is up or down, what is the location of the managed instance, what is the login ID, and logs it is going to show. Then you have the performance query performance inside it will show you performance recommendation. If it has run for enough time, it is going to show you. From the monitoring perspective, you can create the alert matrices. You can go for the diagnostic setting in case you wanted to uh, view the details which is related to the performance. You can review the logs as well. You have the log analytics which can be used. You can go and see the server logs the way you see it on your on-premises environment, or the logs which you see on your Azure VM. It is going to be almost similar. You can create the task, and you can check the resource health, and I believe that's all. So that's all about the basics of PostgreSQL managed instance in Azure.